Bitcoin, as we were saying earlier, has the potential to eat value around the world. So we're talking about hundreds of trillions of dollars of value, and that translates into millions of dollars per coin in price. So that's a huge upside still remains. Software is eating the world, and the iPhone has 30 different devices or more that you used to carry around, and it's all in one iPhone. This is Bitcoin, is eating value around the world, whether it's cash, stocks, bonds, commodities. It's all going to end up in Bitcoin. And that's the big trend, that's just been true since day one, and it'll be true for the next 10 years. The overall mission of Bitcoin over the years has changed somewhat. It became less about the medium of exchange. People kind of ratcheted it all back and say, wait a minute, let's talk about Bitcoin as store of value and get that story straight first, that it's synthetic, digital, absolutely scarce commodity, and it's money, and it's perfect money and well established first. And this led to the whole confrontation in 2017, the block size wars and the New York Agreement. And you had the showdown between those who were looking for bigger blocks and that there should be more transactions, and there's competition with Visa and MasterCard, and that's what Bitcoin's all about. They failed against the nodes, and the nodes are securing the network, and the network secures money. So then flash forward to Bitcoin 2022, and Jack Mallers is talking about being able to go into the store and use Bitcoin as a medium of exchange using the Lightning Network to use what the deal he just cut with NCR. So, Lightning was what solved the problem that wasn't available back in 2011. I call the Michael Saylor era, which started about 2 years ago, was really a step up. It was really the beginning of Bitcoin as a serious professional industry, I would say. And so for 8 years though, you had a lot of shit going on. Michael Saylor kind of kicked off a new era. I call it the Michael Saylor era that we're in now. And I think the next step is going to be, it might be the Janet Yellen era, because Janet Yellen just came out with a statement that was very, constructive about Bitcoin, and talking about it in a way that shows that she actually kind of understands it. So now this might be the new era where we're on the sovereign level, where banks start to really accumulate Bitcoin and start mining Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. So that could be the story of the next 12 months. And so now in 2022 with El Zonte Capital, it's really focusing on hyper Bitcoinization. So anything that takes us closer to creating a circular economy, like we saw in El Zonte, in El Salvador, the people there are getting toward living on a Bitcoin standard, where they're paid in Bitcoin, they're spending Bitcoin, they're saving in Bitcoin, and they're completely divorced from the IMF and the World Bank and all the colonial interests that come from up north in the US. And other countries in the region are quickly figuring out that this is a fantastic thing. We're looking at startups, early stage companies that are going to be pushing the hyper Bitcoinization mantra forward. Certainly, you would definitely need more education. So anything in ed tech is education technology would definitely be looking at it. But I'm also discovering on the ground what's happening. So we're in El Salvador quite often, and so we're just out there actually kicking the tires, talking to people, and finding out on the ground what people are doing, and just finding out where the momentum and the energy is. One company that we're already involved with would be Jan3, which is Samson Mo's new company. He left Blockstream and he's starting a company in El Salvador. It's called Jan3. And he's all about spreading Bitcoin as sovereign legal tender to different countries and all the infrastructure that goes with that. So that's already pretty much earmarked to be in the fund. So that's where we're at. Michael Saylor is kind of leading the way, right? He just did a deal with Silvergate.
Yep.
And so he put up some Bitcoin and borrowed $200 million to buy more Bitcoin. And I was talking to some folks at the conference. I believe he paid 5.25%
Hmm.
for that, which is a leaden is a service. I think that they are. It's a 7.9% is the interest that they're charging folks to borrow against their Bitcoin. I talked to Adam as well at the conference, and I looked into leaden. It looks pretty good.
Five percent.
But as you say, you can get rug pulled on the volatility without having a longer term instrument. So that would be helpful. But clearly, it's not. You have this pristine asset, so if you can borrow against it, then you don't get the tax liability. And for a lot of us, our cost basis is in the single digits. So clearly, if you're selling it at 40,000, that's quite a tax hit. The institutions and the banks that make their money making loans principally are going to get more involved in this core business that they're in. They're in this core business as more banks become custodians, and that's a fairly recent development, right? Mellon Bank in New York is now a custodian for Bitcoin, and banks have become official custodians of their Bitcoin. So all the infrastructure of the banking is coming to Bitcoin. It allows for them to offer traditional types of products, and there will be competition amongst these banks, and so interest uh, could come down, should come down, and the power is shifting from the fiat money world to the Bitcoin world. And the Bitcoiners are starting to have a lot of political clout in Washington. They're having political clout in different countries around the world. They're having clout within corporations that are, pushing for greater Bitcoin exposure on the balance sheet. It's such a perfect asset and such perfect money, and it's so indisputably perfect that its path toward this type of domination of the financial world was inevitable, as everybody says, and so now we're seeing that play out. It's been a struggle to get people to look at this idea for 12 years. Innovation creates demand and creates all kinds of momentum economically, and we've seen this in many industries. But with Bitcoin, because you bring innovation to money, actually the first response anyone has is to throw up, because you're taking something that they hold dear to their psyche, in their consciousness, and you're saying that's wrong. Everything you've thought about money is actually wrong, and nobody wants to accept that. When you keep telling people you're wrong, the response is, well, you're toxic, you're toxic, you're a maximalist. That's what people respond, because they're being told that they're wrong over and over again. And so it's hard to be on the side of a Bitcoin believer, because you're having to. It's like being an exorcist. You show up in the middle of the night, and Linda Blair is on the bed trapped in a fiat money devil, and you're trying to get her to come to Jesus, come to Satoshi, and they're projectile vomiting everywhere. We've just been waiting for the country to come along and say, hey, we're going to make Bitcoin legal tender. And El Salvador was that country, primarily from the work of Jack Mallers and the Strike Lightning Wallet, and Alzante. It gravitated up to the president's office, and the rest is history. And it's the IMF clearly doesn't like this, and we just had a story this past week. Bitcoiners are basically psychopaths, and the Bitcoin is basically evil. Again, I return to this is the whole history, as the exorcism that we've lived for 12 years, having to deal with this denial by the vast majority of the population, who do not want to reconsider or consider that everything they have believed about money is false. Even the gold bugs, who you would think would be more sympathetic to Bitcoin, most of them are also hate Bitcoin because it challenges everything they believe about gold. So you end up being, if you're a Bitcoin maximalist, you're a hated figure, because nobody wants to face the fact that they've been dead wrong. their whole lives about something very basic like money. But it doesn't change the fact that Bitcoin's on this unstoppable path, unstoppable vector. And what we say is, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. Just, let it happen. You've been wrong your whole life, but it doesn't mean that you can't start to be right about what's happening.